If you stand beneath the ramps at 43rd Street in Southcrest, SanDiego, and look west, it feels like something is missing. There are concrete pillars and traffic above, and then nothing. In the late 1960s, maps promised a freeway through Southcrest and Shelltown, and the State Division of Highways began buying homes, clearing roughly 66 acres while crews constructed the 805 and 43rd Street ramps for a road that never came. Houses fell and the corridor sat empty for years. Today, only ramps to nowhere remain. Welcome to Voyager, I'm Armando, and today we're uncovering how people on these blocks defended their future and how years later, disaster tested that future again when floodwater raced down the same path the highway would have taken. Let's get into it.
Before the freeways, Chollas Creek was a lifeline. Freshwater passed through as Kumeyaay families moved seasonally along its banks, crossing at shallow bends between today's Southcrest and Shelltown, all the way west to SanDiego Bay. A generation later, boosters shifted the region's center of gravity. Alonzo Horton's new town drew commerce to the waterfront, and in National City, the Kimballs brothers, Frank, Warren, and Levi, bet big on rail, cutting a clean grid across the mesa to sell lots as soon as the line arrived. When the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe rolled in during the early 1880s, the Bayfront awoke. Depots and warehouses stacked along the tracks, and Chinese labor crews hired by contractor Quin graded roadbeds and raised storefronts near what would become Barrio Logan. John D. Spreckels followed with electric streetcars and the Coronado Beltline, connecting the waterfront to new neighborhoods block by block until the grid itself directed everything west. If you stand on National Avenue today, you can still see east-west streets linking downtown and National City. That pattern, water coursing one way and traffic drawn another, laid the groundwork for what came next. The notion that an east to west highway could someday vault the creek and connect freeways together. After World War II, SanDiego grew faster than its streets could handle, and by 1958, the Division of Highways engineers were sketching a plan to relieve pressure on the newly built Interstate 5 and what would later become the 805. They envisioned an east to west connector to link traffic back to the Bayfront corridors. In 1963, the state put it in writing, defining State Route 252 between I-5 and the future 805, which would trace a route through the low ground along Chollas Creek. Traffic models promised speed, and planners argued that a clean sweep across Southcrest and Shelltown would solve the city's growing pains. Surveyors began knocking on doors, and it seemed inevitable. But on the ground, it would soon meet a community with its own vision of the future.
If you're enjoying the video so far or learned something new, please give the video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. Now back to the story of Highway 252.
By spring 1968, on April 30th, the SanDiego City Council approved the first agreements for State Route 252. Appraisers stepped through the living rooms with clipboards, and families considered buyouts against routes that went back generations. In 1969, Leon Williams took office representing District 4. He pressed for timelines and answers about the freeway's impact, while pastors, PTA leaders, and small businesses began mapping their own strategy. They'd come to canvas blocks, find what records the city needed to disclose, and found how to make the freeway plan answer to the people living in its path. The quiet approval for the 252 became the start of a real community fight. By the early 1970s, the corridor turned into a demolition line. Appraisers arrived, and block by block, the right-of-way was cleared. About 66 acres and roughly 280 homes. Residents scrambled for anything nearby, while small churches held yard sales to fund their moves, bringing together pastors, neighborhood councils, and shop owners. Young organizers learned to file public record requests, while legal aid attorneys taught residents what right-of-way meant. Their goal was to stop the freeway or prove it wouldn't hollow out the community forever. construction marched on at the edges. In 1974, crews poured concrete for the I-805 43rd Street interchange, the on-ramps for a highway that didn't yet exist. At City Hall, a 6-3 vote in 1975 reaffirmed Route 252, and state officials renewed the mandate to finish it. Yet, public outcry pushed the freeway issue to hit the 1977 ballot and the airwaves. In 1978, the tide turned at City Hall. After years of pressure from residents, the San Diego City Council revoked its support for Route 252, a local reversal that soon rippled up to Sacramento. The state did not withdraw immediately, but in 1983, National City challenged the state of California over how the Transportation Commission could rescind the project and dispose of the right-of-way. Former landowners asked for first rights to buy back home sites. City attorneys debated how the corridor should be repurposed, and state officials defended their process. By 1986, the California Transportation Commission voted to abandon the freeway and sell roughly 66 acres back, sparking another round of battles over who would control the future of the land and on what terms. Throughout 1986 and 1987, councils met late into the night. Redevelopment plans were proposed and redlined, and negotiators worked out a settlement that finally closed the book on the El Toyan Southcrest Freeway. SanDiego and Caltrans staff finally moved to strike it from the regional map. Engineers briefed boards, legislators weighed cleanup bills, and in 1994, the legislature passed AB 3132, deleting Route 252 from the street system. The neighborhood had successfully kept its ground. In the early 2000s, the empty corridor began to fill back in, first with utilities and sidewalks, then with homes, clinics, and corner stores. Northgate Market Plaza opened as a signal that daily life was returning blocks once marked for a freeway. Families shopped for groceries, and small businesses followed the foot traffic. Community planners and longtime residents pushed for infill that felt like a neighborhood. The most visible turning point came in 2018 when Southcrest Trails Neighborhood Park opened and artists unveiled A Place to Call Home, a piece that transformed memories of lost houses into a gathering space. In 2024, Caltrans invited the neighborhood onto the concrete itself for an open ramps day. Engineers rolled out chalk and maps. Elders from the original fight walked the deck, while musicians played near the guardrails, turning the canceled freeway into a community workshop. On January 22, 2024, a record storm turned Chollas Creek from a trickle into a river, overtopping banks, flooding Southcrest, Mountain View, and Shelltown. First responders waded into the streets, while neighbors formed human chains at intersections, pulling people from stalled cars and carrying kids over brown water to higher ground. In the days after, church kitchens became supply hubs. Small businesses pumped out storefronts, and volunteers went block by block logging damages. The flood also exposed paperwork and maintenance gaps. Backlogs, clogged culverts, and sediment choked channels that hadn't kept up with the pace of winter storms. City crews and county engineers faced hard questions at town halls. Plans included bigger conveyance where needed and more room to spread where possible, green infrastructure, and warning systems reaching people who don't use apps. Through 2024 into 2025, families rebuilt while agencies mapped projects along the corridor, trying to ensure that the next extreme rains find a safer path, an echo of the old freeway debate, but with a goal to move water without sacrificing the neighborhood.
I remember visiting this neighborhood back in early 2024, and the entire area was covered in mud and devastated. Some of these homes were in water up to 7 feet deep. It's nice to be back and see how people have rebuilt.
The story of the El Toyan Freeway traces a path from careful planning to empty ramps, leaving behind a price tag of roughly $13 million and the loss of about 280 homes, reminding us of the echoes of bulldozers that once threatened these blocks. Decades later, the memory of a canceled freeway still shapes the landscape, the lives of former residents, and the questions SanDiego asks itself about progress and how neighborhoods rebound from what may have been.
So one of the surprises for this video was discovering the National City Depot, the train museum. I highly recommend checking it out if you're interested in the history of the Santa Fe Railroad and trolley system here in San Diego. And also check out the SanDiegoHistory Museum in Balboa Park, which currently has a really interesting exhibit about the lost neighborhoods of San Diego. I hope this story helps you to see San Diego in a different light. If you found it valuable, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more journeys into Southern California's hidden history. I appreciate you spending your time here today. To continue exploring, click right here, and I'll see you in the next video.